per usual, a lot to cover tonight. Not a plethora of topics, but some substance in those topics. As I mentioned at the top of the show, we got Darnold stuff. We have Jason on, who is an ambassador of the Broncos that we're going to talk Denver stuff with. And then we're going to do some mock of a mock draft sort of thing towards the end. So the first bombshell this offseason has had numerous bombshells, a lot of them pertaining to the quarterback, was the fact that Sam Darnold, his era in the Big Apple, is done. They squandered him, they ruined him, and now they're going to send him off for a mini ransom to the Carolina Panthers, where he'll get his geographical cure, so to speak, and perhaps he will turn that team around and be a nice sidekick for Christian McCaffrey. So I will start with you, Wes. When you saw that hit your notifications, what was it? Was it 2 days ago now? Was it yesterday? I can't remember. What were your knee-jerk reactions?
I think it's a good destination for Darnold. He gets surrounded with talent, at the skill position. He goes with a coach, Joe Brady, I believe his name, that has a track record of, being able to get the most out of guys. He was the third pick in 2018, started 38 games, was 13-25 as a starter. Obviously, not all of that falls on him. He had 45 touchdowns to 39 interceptions. Most of that came under head coach Adam Gase, who tends to just ruin players. So
except for Peyton Manning.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's like the only exception.
Well, some people could argue that if it wasn't for Gase, Manning would have had 70 touchdowns.
Right.
Oh,
Very
you would have
true.
loved every additional 15 of them. Oh, you were all about those numbers.
Indeed.
So Gase, he went from being the sexiest thing in the world 5-6 years ago to now being the butt of jokes. Like, who wants him? Even the memes. So he'll probably be back in a familiar offensive coordinator capacity, because I think he might be good at that. But in terms of leader of men on the wholesale enterprise, probably not so much. Jason, what about Darnold to the Panthers? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, when I first saw that, I mean, being a Denver fan, we're caught in the throes of, what are we doing at quarterback? So when that trade went down, I'm just thinking, that's another potential, competition piece for Locke off the board. Yeah. Another one gone. Not that I wanted or advocated to bring him to Denver, but him going there, and then that also opens up another potential piece in Bridgewater, maybe going to Denver for the same reason.
Yeah, right. And we're gonna touch on the Denver stuff and go into the quarterback possibilities in detail, probably in about 5 minutes. On the Darnold thing, I kind of give the cliche answer that he'll have a 2-year audition in Carolina, and that will determine if he's going to make it in the league. He can either separate himself from being this severely bottom tier dude he is right now. Maybe not in terms of potential or reputation, because there's still that pizzazz that surrounds him, but his numbers suck. And there's just no getting around it. I don't care if he was great at your favorite school, Wes, at USC. He was, but he scrapes the bottom of the barrel in nearly every metric, and it probably has a lot to do with the Jets. But with that said, I don't think he'll get any more of a leash with the Panthers. And it's not like they are like this Brooklyn Nets type of team where they're just stuffed full with talent, but he has enough to work with there that he should be able to produce a 10-6 record. So I don't think there'll be any more excuses. Now, admittedly, I don't know why, and I'm usually not this prickish, but everything about him gets on my nerves, and it always has. Like, it's just his aura. I don't know if it's his head or if it's his name. It's just, I see him and my nerves fly to the moon, and it's a very, very awful character trait of mine, but it just happens. But when there are certain plays that I see that I'm like, oh damn, that was pretty sweet, and then you start to think like maybe he does have it, maybe he is in this wretched system. Wes, what do you think about what the Jets gave up? A second, a fourth, and a sixth? I thought that was a lot, because second round pick isn't nothing. And then you have 2 deal sweeteners in there. I think it was fair, but it certainly wasn't peanuts.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely a lot for Carolina to give up. They also will, potentially have to pay him should he succeed.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, why the Jets moved on from him. You look at the blueprint for a lot of teams nowadays. They get a rookie quarterback on a rookie contract, fill the team with other positional players that cost however much, and then try and make that run until they have to pay the guy. So I like the move for Carolina. I like the return for the Jets. Obviously, a second, a fourth, and that's next year, and then a 6th rounder for this year. Pretty good haul for a team that is probably going to pick a quarterback at the number 2 spot. So,
yeah, I always, when I keep running through the mock in my head or reading other people's mock drafts, and I see Wilson to the Jets, and I think just instinctively cringe because I'm like, God, he looks like such a badass on tape. He's going to be ruined there. But then I realized that hopefully for his sake, that was under the old leadership, whether it was Gase or I can't remember the general manager's name. But I think with Saleh there from San Francisco, another hometown of yours, Wes, that I think he has a reasonable shot, or Wilson will have a reasonable shot there. And it may not be the same old Jets, but that kind of falls under the we shall see. So another thing, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, do you guys think that the Jets opted to, because they were in a pretty good position where they could have, traded that number 2 pick and stockpiled quite a bit.
God. Yeah.
I thought I heard today though that they weren't getting too many calls on that because he did say that he was open for business. Not that he would have made a deal, but do you think it was more of a thing that they just didn't have faith in Darnold, or that with the new coach in town wanted to pick his own guy?
I think it's the latter.
Yeah.
I think that it's under new management. It's like a store being opened. All it has is the same storefront, and then you get new brains in there, and that wasn't their guy. And Jason, you accurately predicted this, was it 2 years ago now, that Rosen would be divorced by the Cardinals. And you told me that they were going to go with Kyler Murray. And I was like, they just picked a quarterback. They're not going to get rid of him. And you're like, well, no, Kingsbury, he wants to do the air raid and Kyler is the best at that. And I was like, they just chose a quarterback that was like the sexiest thing in the world. And you were right. I
wanted Rosen that year too.
Yeah.
And you were right. So I think this is that where they come in and say, like, we're in charge, and bless his heart, Darnold will probably do well, but we're gonna send him off and then get as much as we can. But I do find it hard to believe that there wouldn't be folks calling and offering, their mortgage for Wilson, because if based on what I see on the tape, and then like I talk about, like just his presence, the way that he looks, his name, Wilson seems like he's going to be a quarterback that plays in the league for 15 years as a starter. So I find it hard to believe that teams wouldn't give up the farm, and especially San Francisco, if they jumped up to 3 and then they have a backdoor pipeline with Saleh and that entire organization in San Francisco. It's it's a roundabout way of saying I'm pretty sure that the Niners know what the Jets are going to do, and probably vice versa.
Right. And the Niners didn't even make a call, they said, to the Jets for the pick before trading with Miami. So, I mean, yeah, they probably know who they're going to pick. And like we covered last week, they probably know who they're going to pick too.
Yeah. And maybe it was just awkward to get into business because they didn't want to screw one another, because somebody, in today's world has to get the better of the trade on day one. And maybe it was just too awkward. I mean, that's just speculation.
Well, when I first heard that and I did see that today, that when, the Jets GM was on TV saying that, hey, not that I would have, but I'm always willing to answer the call, and nobody's called. I guess my first thought was, maybe there's just that many GMs that don't really feel like this quarterback class is as hyped up as the media makes it out to be. You know, I mean, they're talking about 5 guys going in the top 10.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean,
It's almost a shoo-in.
I mean, I don't watch a whole lot of college ball, but to me, this seems really no different than any other year. And how many of these guys are going to be somebody that you would feel real comfortable with the exception of Lawrence, but even he has the potential to bust.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, and I mean, I look at Zach Wilson, and I automatically think, well, he does at least appear to look better. I automatically think Trubisky.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
BYU kind of not the style of play, but just the underrated opponents that this guy's gone up against. You know, where Trubisky play? He played in North Carolina,
North
didn't
Carolina.
he?
Yep.
Yeah. And then, you know, and I'm not real sure, I guess, but
Yeah,
and Mac Jones, I mean, I almost wonder if you or I could have quarterbacked that all-star team.
Yeah, that one is bizarre. I will absolutely believe it when I see it that San Francisco takes him. I do not buy into that.
Right.
I mean, I think it's lunacy. I was looking at mock drafts 2 months ago when he was supposed to fall to the second round, and I was thinking, oh, maybe the Vikings will trade up midway in the second round to get him. And now he's supposed to go 3rd overall. It's like, what could have changed in 8 weeks that said, and he wasn't even playing in these 8 weeks. I want to do this.
Go ahead.
I want to do this simple exercise. I'm going to spring on the both of you. I sorted in the last, went from 2010 to 2018 because I don't think it's fair to adjudicate quarterbacks that were drafted in 19 or 20 because we still have more tape to see. So I sorted every quarterback that's been drafted in the top 10 from 2010 to 2018. And I want you guys on your fingers to count which one of these, how many of these quarterbacks would you like to have quarterback your franchise right now? And I'm just going to name them off. So keep track on your fingers or in your head as I read off these names. Sam Bradford, Blaine Gabbert, Jake Locker, Cam Newton, Ryan Tannehill, Robert Griffin III, Andrew Luck, Blake Bortles, Marcus Mariota, Jameis Winston, Carson Wentz, Jared Goff, Patrick Mahomes, Mitchell Trubisky, Josh Rosen, Josh Allen, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield. So that's 18 quarterbacks in 9 drafts, all in the top 10. How many do you guys have?
5.
5? How many do you got, Jason?
Yeah, I got 5 as well.
So yeah, 5 out of 18. And mathematically, if my calculator will load because I'm not quite that good, that is
22.
28%. So that means out of these 5 quarterbacks, at the max, 2 of them are going to pan out as a quarterback that you would want quarterbacking your team in about 5 years. Realistically, that's probably 1, and then maybe the second dude is pretty good, and the other 3 are, they're kind of like that Jameis Winston, like we're just not sure if he's good or not. So to your point, Jason, not all 5 of these quarterbacks are going to be good, and we're lucky if 2 or 3 of them are good. So that's why I always, roll my eyes about, well, yeah, 5 quarterbacks are going in the top 10, and I get it. It's a quarterback-driven league, and that's what sells jerseys. That's what gives everybody the hope and the potential. But you just got to really take a step back and look at history. That some of these dudes like Prescott and ultimately Brady, of course, and even the Vikings dude Cousins, they're found in other spots that aren't the top 10 of the draft. So
we go through this every year, it seems, every single year. And it's like, the Baker's class, that's still, up for debate, but, Baker's starting to kind of come to his own, and Allen and Jackson, of course, but then, Rosen and Darnold. And I've never watched Darnold play really, except for when he actually had the best game of his career against Denver. So that was nice. God, he looked great.
All right. So that's going to be our segue to the Broncos portion. I have been quietly impressed by the Broncos offseason, and I say quietly because it's basically retaining their core and not firing the head coach after 2 years, which some teams do inexplicably. They stole away the Vikings lieutenant, who was the lieutenant there for about 15 seasons. And I don't know if I'd say only, but the question mark is what they're going to do at quarterback. and then they jettisoned Philip Lindsay. He went to the Texans, and they replaced him with another Viking, Mike Boone, who it'll be really sweet for him to get a chance to get RB2 carries. But we will start with the quarterback. It is Drew Lock for now. They Broncos were long rumored to be a part of the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes, and now it looks like nobody wants to be a part of that sweepstakes. So it's Lock and a journeyman like Bridgewater to push him to the limit and figure out if this kid has got it, or it's take part in that top 5 in the top 10 conversation where you could potentially land a Fields or a Lance. So Jason, I know that you're a Lock supporter, so we'll put that aside to know that that's probably the guy you want to have at least one more year, which he deserves, because not every quarterback pans out in the first 2 years. But what do you think will happen for these Denver Broncos for quarterback?
Boy, that's such a good question. I mean, like you alluded to, we got, George Payton, who, I'll be honest, I don't know, who knows a whole lot about GMs except for the GM of their own franchise, their fandom, until it comes time to need one. And he was on the list of a lot of the people I follow out in Denver as the guy, the coveted guy. We need to get this guy. But they didn't think it was too likely just because of his history of turning down jobs. I think in 2017, he turned down the Chiefs job. So I'm like, that'd be great. He looks the part. But I don't know anything about him, but apparently he's the real deal. And then he chooses to come to Denver, which was shocking in Denver. In the Denver community, it really was. So we feel pretty grateful. I'm happy, very pleased with what he's done so far. I just can't get a read on what it is that he is going to do at the quarterback position.
Could you get previously reads on Elway?
Well,
sort of.
Yeah, I mean,
just pick a not so good quarterback. That's the read.
Elway pretty much in a lot of. I loved everything Elway did just because Elway's the reason I'm a Broncos fan. So, I looked at it through biased lenses, and I wanted everything that he did to work. And then I tried to convince myself into why they would work, and then they didn't. I'd get frustrated. I love everything he's done so far. Patient. He seems to be very methodical and retaining his own guys, which is something that Elway wasn't able to do in terms of Simmons and Shelby Harris. And, he did let Lindsey go, but, he was a fan favorite. But in terms of the quarterback position, I think he likes Lock a little more than the media thinks he does. I mean, all the quarterbacks have the quarterback well is pretty much drying up. I don't believe that there's a guy in this draft that he is willing to give up capital for to go get. I mean, he may like a few, and he scouted a few, and he's been at the pro days, but from what I understand about the way he works, is he likes to stockpile picks, especially with his first year as a GM. I can't imagine, and potentially a make or break year for the coaching staff. I mean, I can't imagine he'd want to trade up for a quarterback that you'd have to restart over with.
Yeah, you probably want the input, of the coaching staff, like Fangio saying, "Hey, should we take a flyer on this Lance dude?" And then go forth. I think if Peyton is loyal to the way that Rick Spielman did things, he's not going to be trading up for anything. If he does, it'll be to get back into the first round after he's already taken a first round pick. That's how the Vikings nabbed Bridgewater. They've actually done it a couple times. Who else did they do that? That's how they got Harrison Smith. They traded back into the bottom of the first round. So now that's not to say that he's just going to be like Spielman just because they worked together for so long, but he probably sees the benefits of how that worked out, because Spielman, for the most part, is a good drafter of talent, especially in the second round. He doesn't miss. But Wes, you can look at this from these anti-bias lens. I think when we did our second show, we went down the line, and I can't remember if you put Watson on the Broncos then. or did you send
I
him to the
think
Dolphins?
I did.
Yeah, I think you did, and that
I
put
think I
Locke in
did.
Houston. I'm
Yeah.
going to guess you can wipe that away because of events. So
Yep.
what do you foreshadow for the Broncos and quarterback? Is it another year of Locke?
It's another year Locke. As Jason was mentioning, I actually think Denver will probably trade back, try to accumulate additional picks in next year's draft. That way, if they do need a quarterback, they'll have the ammunition to go up and get one. That would be my guess.
Is next year's draft, Wes, peppered with the same amount of talent, or is it too early to tell for quarterback?
I think it's too early to tell. I haven't really followed too closely the next year's class of prospects, but there's usually 3 or 4 that emerge from the class and make a name for themselves to be taken early. So
Okay, so you have Locke there for, I guess, a prove it year between he and Fangio. And what I have been writing about and saying is that it's a glorious blend that they have, because they have a defense first coach who came from the Bears and always put together a ferocious defense. I can attest to that firsthand. And then Elway stockpiled all of these offensive weapons before he took a slight step back with Judy and Sutton and now Patrick and Fant. And so you have this defense first philosophy, and I don't think they're ever going to be worse than 15th best in the league. And then you have all these weapons, so it all hinges on Locke. You have balance. Is that a fair assessment, Jason?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that they're in a real good spot. So I think that they do. I think that they do get a quarterback in the draft. I don't believe it'll be a high one. I think maybe mid-round pick, maybe someone like a Kellen Mond, maybe somebody like that to bring in and, maybe, I guess, compete. But I mean, you got to remember that Locke had Sutton out all last year.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't play at all, which put a lot of added pressure on Judy, which I think got into his head a little bit, led to a lot of drop balls. But I mean, shoot, and he still was able to muster up 870 yards. Had some big plays, and Fant, I mean, he's just waiting to go too. So very young offense, not just at quarterback, but all around. I mean, I think the average age of that team is about 24, 25 years old on that side of the ball.
Are there any weaknesses? I don't think you can call Locke a weakness quite yet. That's just my personal opinion, because I believe in maturation. But is it offensive line or linebacker? Is there anything that's like, because like with the Vikings, which we always pivot back to, the offensive line is the glaring weakness, and we just hope that they fix that in the draft. Is there any spot on the roster right now that's really iffy?
I don't think so. I really honestly don't think if there is one, I do believe it's that middle linebacker position. They've been trying to get that guy for years, and they just haven't. They wanted Devin Bush a few years ago. That's the year we traded back and got Fant. They got a really good opportunity to go with a Parsons this year that would fill that need. But no, their offensive line's getting some continuity. They're coached by Mike Munchak, obviously, so he's done a well job there. Just kind of, if Drew can he put together 3 good games last year, but they were real good. I mean, and it's like, there's enough there that if he could string that together, and, and during those games, it's like one of those younger guys took off, like one of them, you saw Judy do it. Then the next one you saw Fant do it. And then one of them, you saw Hamler do it. And then Patrick was always that consistent, steady hand. Mixed together with running back, good running back play out of Gordon and Lindsey. I mean, they are a pretty well balanced team. Defense, I think, they filled those holes with Fuller and Darby in the secondary. So that, a month and a half ago, we were thinking, we're going to get Surtain or Farley in the draft, but that's not necessarily a need either. Right now.
Is offensive line, is it Garrett Bowles? Is he the one that played like a maniac last year in a good way?
Yeah.
And he's the one, is he the one that drove everybody nuts for the first
God. Man. Yeah, and he was really, really hated on out there, booed by fans, commentators belittled him. Man, this guy, I thought he was gonna just decide not to come back.
And that was all because of false starts, or what was it?
Oh, hold it.
Oh,
We'd get a nice 72-yard touchdown. That's coming back. We all knew what it was too.
So you'd see the flag and you just knew inherently that it was going to be a hold.
Oh God. What's worse is my 8-year-old knew it. He knew it. It's coming back, isn't it, Dad? Yep. It is. But yeah, no, he really stepped up big last year, and good for him.
Yeah, I think he was the top rated tackle.
He was.
Yeah, like Pro Football Focus. Like all of a sudden, I remember looking at it thinking, this is the same son of a bitch that couldn't stop having penalties. And all of a sudden, he's just good. And that's what I try to preach to impatient fans, that, this dude sucks in year 2. It's like they're ready to move on. And I'm like, for the love of God, sometimes it takes until year 3. And I know offensive line's a little different because all you got to do is go out there and just wrestle. But indeed, it takes time for rookies to develop. And we just, in the digital age, do not have patience for that. I mean, I'm not guilty of it personally, but I know the feeling that creeps up in my belly when something bad happens to a second-year player. I'm like, is he ever going to figure it out? And then other folks take it to the extreme, like, this guy is a bust. I can't believe so-and-so drafted him. And then you see an example.
To your point, man, that the offensive line, I think, takes a lot of years too. I mean, you guys obviously remember the offensive line Denver had back in the late 90s with Schlereth and Zimmerman, and God, who else was on that line? But those guys were all together for 5-6 years before they were able to really come together and make it look easy. And they weren't big guys, but they just worked really well together. And even in recent history, like with their Cowboys and the Raiders and some of the better offensive lines in football, they need to be together a few years, I think.
They certainly do, and that's what pains me about this year's Vikings, is that it's like they just don't get it. Like they don't understand that is a priority. And I know that the draft hasn't happened yet, and maybe they'll just absolutely nail that like they did with Jefferson at wide receiver. But so far in free agency, it's been quiet on the offensive line front. Let's see. So we covered pretty much the depth chart and the re-signings. Then on running back, you feel comfortable with Gordon and Boone?
Yeah, I don't know much about Boone, but
speedster.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, I mean, I liked what Gordon did, and when we still have Rolls Royce, on the roster too. Royce Freeman. Yeah. So, and I'm sure they'll pick up another guy in the draft somewhere.
I'm with you. All right, Wes, let's pivot to the draft talk. We're going to go, I was going to say 1 through 10, but realistically, it's probably 3 through 10. I don't think anybody on the show this evening disagrees that Lawrence and Wilson will go 1 and 2. Okay. And that plops us with 3. And because you live there, Wesley, what in the hell will the 49ers do after their biblical Godfather deal?
Yeah. So I just can't see Mac Jones going 3. They're going to visit Justin Fields for his pro day, or he's going to throw for them, I believe, next week. I have to say Justin Fields, he's probably the most polished of the remaining ones. Mac Jones, I believe, was just a benefit of all the talent around him. And you make this type of trade, you can't miss, otherwise you're probably done. So I got to say Justin Fields for the Niners.
Are you worried at all about Ohio State quarterbacks? Because unless I'm missing something, and I believe I looked at this a few months ago, there's never been one that's worth a damn. Or does that just not matter?
I don't think it matters too terribly much. I think I saw a video today. Fields actually he started his college career at Georgia, if I'm not mistaken. So and transferred to Ohio State from there. So maybe he knocked off some of the bad juju that Ohio State has with the beginning of his career.
Okay, so that puts Fields at 3 per us. I won't disagree. I don't gamble. Sometimes I wish I did, but I'm nearly certain that Mac Jones is not going to be the 3rd pick because they wouldn't have to trade that high up. Like the only reason he's in the top 3 conversation is because the Niners traded up there and now they're linked to him. So I just refuse to believe it. It doesn't seem like we have this facade about the 49ers that they are this cream of the crop, like genius head coach, and in his career he's 29-35, 29 wins, 35 losses, and for some reason he gets like this Belichick status of like, oh, wait until Shanahan gets a hold of it, and he got to the Super Bowl once, and other than that it's been garbage. So of course he's an exciting coach. I don't buy into the fact that he's like second best in the business or anything like that, but I also don't think they're going to go Mac Jones. So I'll take the Falcons. They probably will trade out of that. I just don't know who to. But if they don't, then I'm going to say they do indeed do Pitts, because if he is indeed a surefire Hall of Famer, I don't think anybody can complain. And so I'll take that freakishness to go there. And that puts us at the Bengals, right?
Yep. You
want to pick for the Bengals, Jason?
Well, yeah. I mean, if gosh.
That would they're not going to draft a quarterback. That's what we know for sure.
Right. Yeah. If
it'd be Sewell or one of the wide receivers.
Yeah. I mean, for sure. That's what I was going to guess. And, whether that's a tough choice to make if you're making that pick. You want to get the guy to protect your, franchise guy, or do you want to get him some weapons? That's a probably offensive line. I'd probably go Sewell.
Yeah, I think that's another pick I don't think you can go wrong with, because I'm of the opinion that the Bengals really aren't weapon deprived. Maybe that's just because I'm so ingrained in a Vikings offense that's usually like, oh, we got enough, we'll be fine, we'll just let defense take care of it. But I don't. If Sewell is close to a sure thing, I know we're saying that a lot this cycle, this offseason, but I think they come to their senses and they do the. You talked about on our first show, Wes, or maybe it was a Viking show you're on with the meme with the car and the garage, whatever that meme's called. I think they'll do the inverse of that. So that brings you to the next pick. Sewell's off the board, and is that to the Dolphins?
Dolphins. Dolphins are a tricky one. I think they filled a lot of their needs on the offensive side in free agency, with Pitts off the board, with Sewell off the board. Maybe they go Jamar Chase, the top wideout, just fully load the offense with weapons for Tua. So
okay. Well, then that puts me at the Lions, and a very strange story about the Lions. They are in the NFC North, and it's the division I follow the most close, but I have no ill will towards them. I absolutely despise the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears, but the Lions I have never, ever felt negatively about because they never threatened my team. But they're a whimsical organization that has a very brash and weird head coach right now that wants to bite people's kneecaps if they get knocked down, I believe was his quote. I'm going to say that they are going to go, because you took Chase, I'm going to say Trey Lance there, because I'm not sure if they're married to Goff forever. If they would have got all those picks minus Goff, I think the trade would have been worthwhile for them. So I'm going to say Trey Lance there, because they'll have a opportunity to let Lance grow for a year or two, and if Goff remains average Goff, then they can pivot to Lance and go forth.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Who do we got next?
Next is the Carolina
Actually,
Panthers.
why don't you do the Panthers so Jason can do the Broncos?
Absolutely. So Carolina Panthers. We think that they have their quarterback. They'll be fairly pick deprived next year. I think they have to give him every chance to succeed. So I'm going to say Devonta Smith.
Oh, wow. Okay. So then they instantly have DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, Devonta Smith, Christian McCaffrey, that Tom Arnold or Dan Arnold tight end guy. So yeah, they got they got weapons that Darnold, just like Locke, won't have any excuses pretty much after this year.
Yeah.
And that puts Jason with his quote beloved Broncos end quote. And you pretty much get to pick from aforementioned Parsons. Who else is on one of those cornerbacks? What do you got for the Broncos?
And Fields is still on the board, isn't he?
No, he went at 3 for us, for the Niners.
So then Mac Jones is the only QB, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, the only one that is allegedly in the top 10.
Well, I've heard there's been squabbles about Belichick being in on that guy too. So I could see a trade back with Denver. But I mean, if they're picking at, God, that's a lot of good talent to pass up on unless you think you can get one of them. I'm pretty sure if you traded back, you could still get a Farley or maybe even a Parsons.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'd go Parsons.
Yeah, I'm hoping that he falls to the Vikings. I know it's a long shot, but the Vikings have Anthony Barr under contract for 1 more year after he graciously restructured. And I'm not overly sure that he's going to stay a Viking for longer than this year. So I would love to have Mike Zimmer play around with linebacker Clay and Parsons, but they also need offensive line, like we've already touched on. So Parsons goes to Denver. That gives me the Cowboys. Or is that to you now?
No, you got it.
Now, real quick before we go on, though, I do got a question for you guys because I'm a little bit, again, I'm probably not as up to date with the college ranks as you guys are, but the last I saw, and I don't, I just remember hearing loads and loads and loads of good stuff about that receiver out of Alabama.
Devonta?
Yeah, Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, apparently Waddle is higher ranked than he is.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of that fluctuation.
Right. So that's easy to me. I thought this kind of like last year.
Yeah, I think with Devonta, he's the tiny one, right?
Devonta, no, he's 6'1".
Really?
Waddle is 5'10", 5'10" burner.
Okay, so who's the tiniest of the big 3? Is that
Waddle?
Okay, so he's like every year we do this, the Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or the Henry Ruggs of last year.
Right.
Yeah. So Devonta, yeah, he was supposed to go in the top 6 at like a month ago, and now he's fallen to the top 15. I don't think the Cowboys will take. I mean, they could. They weren't supposed to take Lamb last year, but I don't. They would have an they have an embarrassment of riches now. So who do you got or is that me for the Cowboys? Do they need a tackle, Wes?
They need defensive back. So this would be a perfect spot for Patrick Surtain to slide in along with Diggs on the other side, and hopefully they in no way, shape, or form really need to tackle, because you can probably see what I'm trying to do here. Yeah. Not that I could tell. I did some research before this today, and Pro Football Focus did a updated team needs after the first wave of free agency, and they got defensive back, safety, edge rusher, and tight end as the top priorities for the Cowboys. Okay,
then I will not take Rashawn Slater. I will take Patrick Surtain II for the Cowboys.
Right on.
That gives you the Giants, doesn't it?
That gives me the Giants. They also need a defensive back or an edge, or possibly an offensive lineman. I think the talent at defensive back might be a little too tempting. So I'll say J.C. Horn from South Carolina to the New York Jets.
Oh, okay.
New York Giants.
About an hour ago, I talked to Troy Williamson, who played for the Vikings for a few years, and he was a notoriously high draft pick that was supposed to replace Randy Moss. It didn't work out too swimmingly, but he went to South Carolina, and the first question I asked him on the Vikings show was about J.C. Horn, and he actually thinks Surtain is the best corner in this draft, but he doesn't think that Horn will fall all the way to 14, so it makes sense that you have him that high. Let's see. Who's the next team? Jason can route us out.
What is the next team?
The Eagles.
Oh yeah, that'll be interesting.
That's right.
So yeah, you can finish this out with the Eagles if you got a hot take. Or you might want to just give them Devonta.
Yeah, you might as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
that actually makes sense because they were chided for not taking Jefferson last year, and arguably he could have changed history and kept Wentz in Philadelphia.
Seems to me like the Eagles. I mean, every year it's at least for the last 3, but it seems like it's been at least a half a decade. You had Jackson and
Jeffrey
hurt out for the year.
Yeah.
It's like these guys have been hurt for like 5 years.
Oh yeah, it's and you don't. I know you started playing fantasy recently, but Wes can tell you that every year on draft night, you're in about maybe the 8th or 9th round, and you get a big light bulb in your head that says, I'm going to take Alshon Jeffrey because this is going to be the year that he reclaims himself. And then you stash his ass on the bench. And then just as Jason prognosticated, you're sitting there and it's like, oh, he's out 4 to 6. And you're like, I knew it, but I was still stupid enough to draft him.
And you never even really see how it happens. It just appears at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, it's just notorious.
That was Josh Gordon for me.
Oh, well, you're going to get a speech here. So everybody on this show tonight is a recovered alcoholic with at least 7 years of recovery under their belt. So with Josh Gordon, when he first started his shenanigans, the year that he led the league in receiving and missed the first 4 games, something like that. And then he got popped for weed or DUI. And I was all about like, okay, he's going to come back, because I was like in year 2 of sobriety. And, I was like, this guy can do it. I was all about redemption. I still am. But every year he has like this comeback story. It hits Bleacher Report that he's eligible to play. And then for about a month and a half, you think about like, okay, yeah. And then it hits again that he's suspended. So I'm sick of it. If he's going to have redemption, just do it in your own life and don't come back to football. He's giving drunks a bad name.
Yeah.
I'm tired of it. It's like every year, and then you don't hear about him. And then when his name comes up, people think like, oh, they're getting Josh Gordon, like he's going to be good. And then he's not. And then he's suspended again. And then he'll tell wild stories along the way. And so
he's been in the league such a small amount of time that people forget that it's been almost a decade since that season.
Right.
Like this is going to be it. But this guy has aged like 10, 11 years since then.
Yeah. I'm sure it'll happen again. He'll be back and he'll end up somewhere and then we'll see. But on the Eagles, I wanted to comment on that before we finish up. Like coming from a fandom of a team that has never won a Super Bowl, if I was an Eagles fan, I would let that dude coach indefinitely. Not because, he's the top 3 coach in the league, Peterson, he got fired. But if you are that Super Bowl starved, I think if you're able to do it just once, then you would get the closest thing to a lifetime contract that you could muster. And, but they we thought was going to be choosing Wentz over Peterson. And then they just blew up the whole damn thing and starting fresh with that weird coach and Jalen Hurts to see if he pans out. So that's my little speech on the Eagles, that Peterson was probably gone too prematurely, but he'll wind on his feet somewhere. Anything else, Jason, you want to talk about tonight?
Yeah, man, I enjoyed it. So Wes, you're a Niners fan. Is that accurate?
No, Vikings fan living in San Francisco.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
He likes the Giants for baseball.
Yeah.
I always give him crap about Aubrey Huff.
we're going to get to catch a Giants game here in about 2 months
Nice.
in Texas, actually. So
Oh,
I
that's who
don't
they're
know
playing?
much about baseball right now, anyway. But
Oh, you know enough to get by. You make it sound like you don't get it. You know baseball.
yeah,
You probably
yeah.
couldn't hop on a podcast and sound like a guru, but you know baseball.
Hey, well, I know who Mike Trout is. So, but no, man, I'm hoping big things for Denver this year. I really hope Locke can do it. I mean, I'm a biased Locke fan. I've been a fan of his since Missouri. I'm glad that we drafted him, and I thought he got a raw deal last year. Lots of balls bounced in the wrong direction, and
Yeah.
one more year, I think he definitely has earned. But
yeah.
it's not like he came out looking like Paxton Lynch.
Or well, no, Osweiler had a glimpse of good, and
We wouldn't have won the Super Bowl without
yeah.
Osweiler. Remember that comeback from win against the Patriots on
Yep.
Monday night? I figured he was going to be our quarterback until 2040.
Oh
after that.
Yeah, me too. I remember. Yeah, because were the Patriots undefeated, or they'd never lost a game in prime time at home, or he broke some streak that was illustrious. It must have been undefeated. And yeah, he looked the part. And then when they went back to Manning, I guess what you kind of had to do. And and then when he went to the Texans, and now it just lives in infamy that he got, traded.
They went back to Manning and just destroyed his psyche.
Yeah. And then they had to find somebody to take the contract once he was leaving the Texans, and then just pretty much vanished.
Do you remember that game in 2013 when the Broncos were up by like 50 and they were going to put Brock in for a couple minutes at the end of the game, and Manning told him to sit down.
Oh yeah. He was putting his helmet on and everything. Yeah, and Manning's like, "No, we're not doing it, homie."
Poor guy.
Yeah.
God,
right.
he was frustrated.
Wes, what's on the docket for next week? Just more draft stuff?
More draft stuff and whatever breaking news. Speaking on Drew Lock, FranchiseTagged just posted an article maybe hour ago regarding Drew Lock's status. So if you are interested, go to FranchiseTagged.com and check it out.
Was that Ankonch, or who was that?
Jared.
Oh, it was Jared. Jared Barsness, our draft expert at FranchiseTagged.com.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have. We will see you next week when we'll be 2 weeks away from the draft. And that's all we got. Peace.
Adios.
All right, Jason. Thanks, homie. I'll send you the link in about an hour. I got to chop up the Vikings show and then this one, okay?
Sounds good, man.
Right
I
on.
appreciate you having me on, guys.
Oh, yeah.
Wes, nice to meet you, man.
Nice to meet you as well.
Take it easy.
Later.